This program contains graphic content which may be disturbing to some people. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. This is perhaps the most sickening story I have ever produced. It does not come with much analysis. Rather, it recounts the number of times sharp implements were plunged into St. Lucians. It bellows the soundtrack of gunshots which snuffed out life. It also places the spotlight on law enforcement and the challenges they faced in 2017 as murder after murder after murder had to be painstakingly investigated. It begs the question, why have 50% of all homicides in 2017 remained unsolved, and what made that particular year the bloodiest in St. Lucia's history? In this episode, we recount the first 30 homicides of 2017 with a view to understand why they happened. Have the perpetrators been arrested? And how could this bloody tide be reversed? Untold Stories presents 60 Killings in 60 Minutes Part 1.
That's really f***ed up, guys.
Police are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of a 21-year-old resident of Rosalie.
January 6, 2017. As the festive season began to wind down, gunmen loaded up their pistols to claim their first victim. At 3:40 a.m., as Rosalie residents and vendors were wrapping up from a night of action, gunshots rang out at the corner of Marina and St. George Street. It is believed that the assailant or assailants fired several rounds through this open window at their target, Jeremy St. Martin. As of February 2019, there have been no arrests in connection with the killing of Jeremy St. Martin. Ricky Wally Lane in Leslie Lancastries has seen its fair share of gangland-style shootings and executions. It would be the site of the second murder of 2017. True to form, about 10 p.m., two masked gunmen approached 26-year-old Shemaiah Crescent as he exited this shop. When the shots stopped, Crescent, a resident of Arundel Hill, sustained gunshots to his abdomen, jaw, shoulder, and left arm. His attackers disappeared in the darkness, cutting through the alleys of Ricky Wally Lane. Crescent clung to life until the 8th of January, when he succumbed. One individual was arrested and released pending further investigations. As of February 2019, Crescent's killers roam free.
What started as a stop and search operation by police on the morning of Sunday, 8th January, quickly turned deadly when, in an attempt to evade police, Yves Rennie was fatally shot, resulting in the third homicide for 2017.
The police force was thrust into an unenviable spotlight that Sunday, pitted against those it has sworn to serve and protect. One of their own fatally shot a retreating unarmed Fourmager resident in broad daylight, in the presence of close friends and relatives. As Yves Rennie, aka Nazaire, ran from the scene, Police Constable 879 Gilroy Gaston, attached to the Special Services Unit, discharged a single round, killing him instantly. This was the first police killing since 2011.
The investigations are going to be done properly. The mistakes of the past will not be repeated.
And considering the unholy kettle of hot water which the Royal St Lucia Police Force currently calls home,
Gaston was charged for the offense of causing death by gross negligence or recklessness.
Gilroy Gaston was not offered the usual protection of the badge. Death comes in threes. The bygone era myth was revived and resonated throughout St. Lucia and particularly across the Boaden Jacmel community on Bloody Sunday. Gillen Joseph, a 37-year-old father of two, was executed in a barrage of gunfire as he, along with 16-year-old Kyle Richard and Dequan Joseph, gathered outside this corner shop. Two gunmen unleashed terror on the typically sleepy Boaden community, leaving bodies, bullets, and a wave of bereavement in their wake. Gillen Joseph had been shot multiple times and died instantly. So too was Dequan Joseph. The 16-year-old died on the spot after being riddled with bullets. Dequan was a new Boaden Jacmel resident after moving from Conway in Castries to live with his mother. Family quickly dispelled any notion of Dequan's perceived gang ties. His only sin, according to his older sister Odita Joseph, was choosing to help out on a barbecue grill outside this corner shop where he met Gillen Joseph and Kyle Richards. Neighbors, bystanders, family members teetered closely along the police cordon tape as they observed crime scene investigators extract evidence from this triple homicide scene. Kyle Richard, or Kyle Nelson as he was also known, was days shy of his 17th birthday. He had been shot 7 times that Sunday.
He was a very quiet boy, loving child, greeting everybody he met. So it's just that his line was down there.
Interestingly, a suspect was identified, but was killed the day after the incident. The bloodshed did not let up that night. Coroners had one more pickup to make. Police Commissioner Severin Morchery and then ACP Milton Daisy were among other investigating officers at the scene of the last killing on Bloody Sunday. The incident happened in this house in Grand Riviere Grosley at about 8 p.m. on Sunday the 8th of January. Guns were not involved this time around, and the accused didn't fit the typical profile of a killer.
Dead is 25-year-old Dylan Joseph. Joseph was, according to reports, involved in an altercation with his girlfriend before meeting his demise.
An adult female in a 7-year relationship with her 25-year-old partner, Dylan Joseph. She was the prime suspect in homicide number 7. Joseph and his girlfriend were embroiled in yet another argument while at a local bar. Physical violence, according to family, was not uncommon between the two. Reports claim that the fatal lovers' quarrel was instigated over a text message discovered by Dylan on his girlfriend's mobile phone. It was shortly after 8 p.m. when a knife was plunged into Dylan's chest. He managed to retreat to his home nearby and collapsed on the staircase outside. It was there Dylan took his final breaths as his mother and other relatives relaxed upstairs. Police arrested Dylan's girlfriend shortly after. She was released without charge. The disturbing trend of female killers using the abuse card is commonplace in St. Lucia. Over the years, many a lady killer has gotten away with little to no punishment, especially once the words domestic violence are uttered, save and except for Donnelyn Lesmore, who killed her abusive police officer husband. Interestingly, over the past 5 years, not one St. Lucian man has been fortunate enough to defend himself from another male attack and even gotten away with the self-defense defense. Baffling, unfathomable, but absolutely true.
It is the 9th day of January 2017, and just after 11 a.m. this morning, homicide number 8 was recorded at Babatat Castries.
The history of homicide victim number 8 was a troubled one. 27-year-old Urias Anthony alias Outclair was a familiar face to the boys in blue. Like the Boaden Jacmel triple homicide victim slain the day before, Outclair was also a resident of the Jacmel community before he moved to Wapatat Castries. He'd lived there for a few months before he met his demise just before midday on the 9th of January 2017. Urias Anthony was shot at close range as he sat in a neighbor's yard. Urias Anthony's death was perhaps a head-scratcher for investigators. He was the key suspect believed to have carried out the Boaden triple murder. Less than 24 hours prior. As of February 2019, no arrests have been made in Urias' execution-style killing. The body count seemed to have slowed at the end of the first week of the new year. Homicides didn't make news headlines over the preceding days. That is, until the 14th of January 2017. This 24-year-old Keegan Roseman, along with an older brother and friends, were out on the town celebrating a birthday. A late-night stop at this bar in Bois-de-Wange was the last watering hole visited by Keegan and friends. It was after 3 a.m. when Keegan responded to Mother Nature's call. He exited the bar in search of privacy some 100 yards away. It was the last time Keegan was seen alive. Reports of a blue car fleeing the area suggested Keegan's killers may have been laid in wait. Despite the word on the ground about what may have happened that night, the Major Crime Unit has since made absolutely no arrest.
My son, he's a loving boy, he's a nice boy. Everybody can tell you that. Everybody.
A man sitting in a parked vehicle along a typically bustling inner city road could no longer be ignored as just another mundane activity. It was the 26th of January, a Thursday, just after 5 p.m. in Castries. Local businesses were turning over their open signs. Commuters began trotting back home from work, as were school children and other inner city dwellers. Rush hour traffic slowly churned through the city streets. And there was Peter Daisy, 34 years of age, seated casually in a parked pickup, right there, in this alley, in the most notorious crime hotbed in St. Lucia, ironically called the Graveyard. A lone gunman shot Peter in the face at close range. He was killed instantly. The lurking assassin was said to be unmasked when he pounced on Peter. Conversely, CID officers are yet to make an arrest.
For Peter Satney, it was a normal day as he awoke, prepared his lunch, and left for work at the Royal.
The morning of the 27th of January began like any other for 52-year-old Peter Satney. A laborer by trade, Satney's days started at the crack of dawn. The routine commute through the Cedars community where he lived continued along the Sunbuilt Road en route to his construction job was common knowledge for residents, friends, and family.
So when the police come, the police kill me. He died.
Why would anyone shoot this middle-aged man in the limbs and lower back so early in the morning? His family and police share the same thing.
So they're waiting for when you pass it, when they have a time to rob you, that's what they're doing. Huh?
And the common soundtrack at the end of the stories is, to date, no arrests have been made. January's tally, 11 dead, 10 by firearms and 1 death by stabbing. The cutlass and knife would cause havoc in February as 4 more St. Lucian lives would be snuffed. When we return, a cutlass attack unlike any other, and later, the science behind the methods of killing. And later still, what progress, if any, have police made?
Place Salaison, Groselet, Castries, Vieux-Fort, and Soufrière.
Prepare for the hurricane season by ensuring trees and other objects on your property won't get tangled in overhead wires. Be careful. Ensure ladders and tools don't come within 10 feet of power lines. If a tree is near electrical lines, don't try to trim it yourself. Contact Lucelec at 452-2165 or 454-6617. Be smart. Stay safe.
70% of all health decisions are influenced by lab results. Delivery of accurate, reliable, and timely results has been our mandate for over 20 years. We are Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited, generating hundreds of lab tests each year while delivering quality, personalized, confidential service, one client at a time. With a reliable network of regional and international partners, all tests are conducted with patient care in mind. Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited, saving lives and caring for people. We focus on results so you can focus on what's important. Telephone 459-2200.
Thanks to LTE, I can use my tablet to watch videos and more.
LTE is faster, much faster. My calls don't drop.
Expansion means better service to you. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable. Call us today, 458-6300.
This program contains graphic content which may be disturbing to some people. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Black Flag, a community in mourning as homicides number 12 and 13 for 2017 were recorded at Active Hill on Wednesday morning.
It was the first double homicide of 2017, which occurred on February 1st. The victims, Sandrina Joseph, 29, and her boyfriend, Jeremy Abella, 26. They were asleep in their home in the Tamarind Heights neighborhood of Active Hill, the Cleary. Sandrina's two children were also asleep in another room. In the dead of night, an intruder carefully observed the unsuspecting family deep in slumber. He did not come to steal, yet he robbed Sandrina's children of a mother. She, along with Jeffrey, awoke to a machete blade relentlessly slashing through their flesh and bone. The two never left their bedroom alive. Murmurings about the killer's identity spread and was narrowed to the father of Sandrina's children, ex-con 37-year-old Don Pierre Louis. Don Pierre Louis was released from the Bodley Correctional Facility a few months before the brutal deed. He served time for various convictions and, in 2015, was the subject of a manhunt after briefly escaping custody. Don Pierre Louis, a scorned lover, had apparently made good on a sick promise to end the life of the woman who bore his children. In a strange turn of events, the accused killer turned himself into the police. He later led CID officers to the shrubbery-laden area where he allegedly disposed of the murder weapon and the blood-stained clothes he wore that fateful night. A dispute between father and son took a deadly turn on February 3rd. 51-year-old Charles Augustine and his then 26-year-old son Ezra Smith had a long history of bad blood between them. Ezra suffered from mental illness and was known to violently lash out in the home he shared with his father and other sibling Christopher Smith at Pave Castries.
Now he's a man like to talk a lot of shit, which I get stay there like come and put trouble around the area and thing, but at the same time I did run down there and tell him don't come and make noise there. I said, if it's that run to go and do, I said, go somewhere else.
Despite attempts at treatment from the mental wellness center, Ezra grew estranged from the rest of the family. Scuffles and quarrels became the norm at their residence. One such incident, corroborated by Ezra's uncle and brother, was a sign of things to come.
The first time he stabbed his father by the Boston, he almost killed his father because his father had a hose and thing in the hospital and blood coming out to drain out for the dirty thing, you know.
Charges were not pursued against Ezra. The 26-year-old later lapsed on his medication and before long was again at physical odds with his dad. It was after 4 a.m. on a Friday morning when Christopher scampered outside his home. Ezra and his father Charles were embroiled in a confrontation the day before, and Christopher feared the worst. Charles Augustine was found motionless underneath his house with several puncture wounds about his body. Ezra was nowhere to be found. Charles was pronounced dead that morning, and his son Ezra was subsequently tracked down by the police and arrested. The suspected lunatic was later charged for murder.
At about 7 p.m. Tuesday, officers attached to the Criminal Investigations Department responded to reports of a stabbing in the community.
Homicide number 15 is a mouthful of confusion. Uroy Theophilus, 29, and Diodoni Greaves were known associates. The two were neighbors who resided here at Wapatat Castries. Uroy and Diodoni had their relationships pushed to the extreme on the evening of February the 7th. Uroy's sister, Kentra St. Mary, told online press that her brother perished after a squabble over loose change from a store run. Another sibling, Sheldon Peters, also supported the theory on Uroy's death.
Somebody send and do a message, you have to give back the person the change. If they have to pay you, they have to pay you. You can't pay yourself. So you have to always wait for the person to pay you, never pay yourself.
The assailant disappeared that night. However, CID officers had leads that led to an arrest. The evidence needed by investigators to proffer charges never came due to uncooperative witnesses. The only suspect in custody was released. Police are awaiting forensic results to conclusively identify the suspect. The picture didn't change much in March. Disputes were settled with blunt force and sharp objects used to pierce and slash through human flesh. What could go wrong with two grown men having drinks at a bar in the rural community of Montparnasse, Dennery? It was just past midday on an otherwise dreary Friday. We were 3 days into the month of March. The Montparnasse bar was empty, save for the bartender and the two men who knew each other well. 49-year-old Clayton Justin and then 63-year-old Raymond Popo were enjoying their preferred beverage when an argument erupted between them. Sure, most people argue and some wash it down over some drinks, just as Justin and Popo were already doing. Instead, a cutlass was drawn. There were no fig trees to trim inside that bar. Clayton Justin downed his last drink that day. His neck was slashed open. Clayton made it only as far as the balcony of the Montparnasse bar before his legs gave out, falling awkwardly to the floor. By the time the residents were made aware of the vicious attack that had just happened, Clayton's blood had formed a flowing stream around his body. Cell phone video told the story. He was dead within minutes of the chopping. Raymond Popo was accused of committing the grievous act on someone he was having drinks with. He was charged with non-capital murder, and of course, bail was denied in this case.
I just heard the girl screaming and things, so. And when I went in the room and things, so I just see he on the girl and just stabbing up the girl and hold the girl in her foot. I pulled him over from out in the girl and I didn't have time to save the girl and things, so and the girl had time dead and she was just taking a last breath.
Peter Donovan was on the run from police for about 2 days before he turned himself in to face murder charges. His father, Randolph Brown, told news reporters his fugitive son first visited him for heart-to-heart before surrendering.
I'm happy about how he turned himself in. And he come to me last night and we talked, and my daughter took him in.
Peter Donovan fled the Cicero home he shared with 31-year-old Sophiana Edward, the mother of his 2 children. Peter was described as an easygoing shopkeeper by his family and neighbors, including Sixers George, who lived next door. Sixers hadn't seen Peter since around midday on March the 5th, when he wrestled him off his girlfriend Sophiana Edward. Sophiana and Sixtus were moments before having a casual neighbor-to-neighbor chat when Peter burst in from the corner shop. The couple left Sixtus outside and retreated to the bedroom. A scream prompted Sixtus to rush inside the house, where he told reporters he saw Sophiana underneath Peter, struggling to break away. The day after turning himself in on the evening of March the 8th, Peter was formally arraigned in the 1st District Court for the offense of non-capital murder.
We just came on the scene, my body is still there. My sisters and I, we don't know what's going on. We don't know how she died, we don't know anything, we're just there.
The first homicide recorded in St. Lucia South occurred in Cantonment View Fort on March the 8th. International Women's Day was being observed when the nude body of 52-year-old Virgil Roberts, a mother of 5, was discovered battered and unresponsive on the bed she shared with her boyfriend. Virgil had been in a romantic relationship with a man nearly half her age, 29-year-old Mervyn Mangal, who police charged in connection with her death.
Her grieving relatives watched as the accused appeared in a Viewfort court on May 9.
Pathologists ruled Virgil Roberts died of respiratory failure due to multiple blunt force trauma. Predictably, the brutal nature of Virgil's death sparked outrage and appeal for change from local women's rights advocacy group Women in Action.
They had some scuffle over cigarettes. 2 other guys, I think he bought a cigarette and apparently one guy knocked it off.
2 days later, on March the 10th, 19-year-old Jacmel Frederick was stabbed in the abdomen, right here, a short distance from his home at Bardi.
I applied pressure to the wound. It was bleeding heavily. I called ambulance. They watched me, tell me, dog, I could die. I think, boy, come, tell me. He tell me, tell my sister, I love her.
His alleged attacker, 28-year-old Bennett Hippolyte, wielded the murder weapon. Bennett came to the defense of an unarmed third party who reportedly knocked Jacmel's cigarette out of his hands. Words were exchanged, a rock was thrown, friends intervened to prevent a physical altercation, and Bennett departed. For a few moments, peace seemed to have prevailed. Jacmel Frederick succumbed in the ambulance en route to the Victoria Hospital. Bennett Hippolyte was slapped with a non-capital murder charge after CID officers recovered the weapon used in the attack. Bail was denied, and Bennett is awaiting trial on remand. The March madness was predominantly domestic in nature. Personal beefs and sour romances devolved into deadly attacks. It was a brilliant month for the police department as they recorded a high solve rate for the month of March after successful apprehension of all implicated suspects. It was almost 1 month before the next homicide was recorded. The police department, newsrooms, and the public got a moment to collectively catch their breath until April 9th.
Hey, stop it.
That's what I'm here for.
For over 138 years, we've had your back. From home contents to medical, auto to business continuity. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable.
I'm living in Ancillary and I'm there with Digital and I will never switch.
I just discovered that I can watch local channels for free on the Playgo app.
Lucelec will terminate any account on its system that remains disconnected for 90 consecutive days. In such cases, the meter and service line will be withdrawn. Similarly, Lucelec will repossess any meter or service line on vacant or abandoned properties. These measures are to ensure safety and to reduce electricity theft. To reinstate the electricity service, the final bill at the time of the meter withdrawal must be paid, and an application for a new connection made to Lucelec. This means the property must be re-inspected and recertified by the Electrical Department of the Ministry of Infrastructure before service can be provided. Call Lucelec for additional information.
70% of all health decisions are influenced by lab results. Delivery of accurate, reliable, and timely results has been our mandate for over 20 years. We are Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited, generating hundreds of lab tests each year while delivering quality, personalized, confidential service, one client at a time. With a reliable network of regional and international partners, all tests are conducted with patient care in mind. Laboratory Services and Consultations Limited, saving lives and caring for people. We focus on results so you can focus on what's important. Telephone 459-2200.
La Place Salaison, where the price is always right.
This program contains graphic content which may be disturbing to some people. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Incidents of men subjected to physical abuse by their female counterparts remain woefully underreported. However, new light was shed over the plight of abusive men on the afternoon of April 9th. Cletus Edward, 39, and Leandra Pierre, 36, shared a home with their 3 children at Goodlands Castries. It was a Sunday, but they had been arguing for most of the weekend. It was not an unusual occurrence for those who knew the troubled couple.
Although they always had heated arguments, but it was a surprise, and especially the way it happened. And
thumps, smacks, and screams led Cletus and Leandra's 10-year-old son to their bedroom, where the child saw his mother crying over the lifeless body of his father. Blood had stained the towel Leandra used in an attempt to stop Cletus's wounds from gushing. He was stabbed twice. A man had died at the hands of a woman for the second time in 2017. Local women's rights group Women in Action did not shy away and called on men to change their mindsets and report their abuses to the authorities. Leandra Pierre was immediately held by the police and charged with non-capital murder. She remains remanded at the Bodley Correctional Facility. 3 children lost both parents that afternoon and now require counseling so they can adjust to life without their mom and dad.
Just 4 months into 2017, and yes, 21 murders.
Twapiton resident 59-year-old Leonard Felicien bled to death on the pavement near a local bar after shards of a broken bottle was lunged into his body. His femoral artery, a critical vein which transfers blood to the legs, was ruptured. If untreated, a person can bleed out within minutes.
It's 2 big men that they say, you can't treat from and so that happening. Huh? The other fella, that fella thing still come between them fellas, separate them fellas still hey. You check it. You see, after that, the man had a bed, the man break the bottle of beer and end up stabbing them. One stab.
Leonard, no stranger to the bottle, had been drinking that day. Family told press. Leonard was known to get out of hand after one too many. Previous attempts by a mutual acquaintance to quash the heated verbal exchange between Leonard and a man who was about 20 years his junior, Wayne Janvier, on the afternoon of the 22nd of April, went unheeded. So too it seemed for emergency calls for an ambulance, which according to Leonard's brother, Hayden, never came.
When I reach here, when I call the ambulance tell me, well, it's only one ambulance they had, and they send the ambulance Marigot. So why I can't put my brother on a vehicle or something and transport my brother to hospital? So I tell him, man, I can't do that because I seen the man down on the ground there like the man done die already.
A lack of resources was the reason given by dispatchers on that day. The Royal St Lucia Police Force got their man Wayne Janvier within hours. An alleged dispute over money triggered the fatal quarrel. The chaos had spread to the Castries East community of Marshall, which had previously enjoyed a lull from the gunplay. During the week of May 14th, however, chaos reigned. The railings along the Black Malay Bridge in Marshall inadvertently serve more than just to protect pedestrians and motor vehicles from dropping in the stream below. It is also the gathering point for the boys on the block. 22-year-old Kimbert Lynch was one such boy on the block.
When the gunfire ceased, a young man lay on the Black Malay Bridge wounded. Police say they are investigating the fatal shooting of 23-year-old Black Malay resident Kimber Lynch, who was accosted and shot as he sat on the bridge.
Kimbert, who was previously treated at Victoria Hospital for stab wounds months earlier, would again end up in a fight for his life. On the afternoon of May 14th, Two unidentified men aboard a scooter rolled up to Kimbut at this bridge just before midday. Words were exchanged and substituted for gunshots shortly after. Kimbut almost instinctively ran home. He had been shot in the chest and thigh. He succumbed during surgery that afternoon. CID officers arrested and charged Shimar Marin in connection with Kimbut's killing. The Marshall community, under siege by gun-toting assailants, drew out Parliamentary Representative Philip J. Pierre to the affected neighborhoods, where he offered condolences, assisted with funeral arrangements, and gave assurances of a return to peace. The hallmarks of a street-style execution were apparent in homicide number 23. Krishna Chester Wilson was killed hours short of his 33rd birthday on May 21st from point-blank range. According to police reports, masked gunmen approached Krishna, who was seated with company outside this bar in Marigot at about 12:30 a.m. A single gunshot shattered Krishna's skull, causing him traumatic brain injury. He succumbed at hospital. Birthday plans changed into funeral arrangements in an instant, and a police-led manhunt for the perpetrators ensued. However, without any visual clues of the shooter's appearances, no suspects have been arrested. The island's youngest homicide victim was killed on the evening of May 22nd at the George Charles Boulevard in Marcia, Castries. Jacmel Lambert, an 8-month-old baby, was hanged to death while the child's mom, Melissa Lambert, went off on an errand at a nearby shop. She left home at about 5:30 p.m. Melissa told press she returned home to peculiar circumstances roughly an hour later.
I just thought about the door. Die! I know there enough. You know, like, look, the door that done tight to a neck already, so it had to come out. When I take out, I have to do 2 ropes. Like the person had done whoop my child already. The person was marking me.
The door leading to the baby's cot was shut. She forced it open to find the position of Jacmel's crib was moved to block the door from the inside. Was the heartless attack on a defenseless baby retaliation? Was her death linked to the recent spate of shootings in Marcia? Or was this tragic incident a freak occurrence or an accident? The same piece of rope Melissa used to secure her door was found tied around baby Jacmel's neck. Melissa, like other George Charles Boulevard residents, lived in squalor. Baby Jacmel was the last of her 5 children, and the single mom faced difficult financial circumstances to feed them. Melissa took to the media to vehemently dispel rumors of her alleged involvement in Jacmel's death.
My baby back, my girl. It's too hard. I think it's so hard with my baby to come. Me and my father wasn't even together. I buy everything. I stayed in my bottom dollar. Check on my children. I'll not never buy clothes. But the person that killed my baby, I have to see them. I want my baby back. People saying I kill my baby. I will never kill my baby. If I have to kill my baby, I kill my baby from in my belly.
CID officers have made no arrest in connection with the killing of baby Jacmel. The matter has since been submitted for inquest by the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. Another young man would feature on the DBS obituaries in the days after his untimely death. Kim Isidore of Green Gold at Kako, Barbono, was no more than 26 years of age when he was killed. It was shortly after 8 p.m. on May 24th. Kim was hit at least 3 times in the shoulder, in the abdomen, chest, and waist. The ignition of the car was switched on. Kim floored the accelerator. Was he chasing after the attacker or retreating for help? A retaining wall a few yards away was as far as Kim got. He crashed his car head-on, further exacerbating his injuries. Green Gold residents, alerted to the sound of gunfire, approached the crash site to find Kim bloodied and barely responsive. Cell phone footage captured by a bullet-riddled Kim Isidore clinging to life. The 26-year-old's reputation in the community drew mixed reviews. His family publicly vouched for his credibility as a kind person, Conversely, Kim was known to law enforcement, which fueled speculation about the possible motive behind the shooting. Was Kim the victim of some retaliatory attack? CID officers made several arrests following the deadly Green Gold shooting. A 9mm pistol was recovered. However, no charges have been laid and several suspects have been released. Gang violence and personal beefs owned the month of May. Guns were used in all but one of the killings. The deadly gunplay spilled over in the month of June.
I can stream 2 hours of local content for free every day.
I'm from Mikud. I'm a digital customer for over 9 years and I'll never switch.
The Lucelec service standard is to record and resolve all reported faults within 24 hours, with the exception of defective streetlights. Faults are also classified by priority, with hazards such as downed power lines at the top of the list. To report a fault to Lucelec, call 452-2165 in the north or 454-6617 in the south. Faults can also be reported on the Lucelec Facebook page at The Power of Caring and on Twitter at Power of Caring.
Life is a series of triumphs and trials. The circle of life has all the usual certainties and, of course, the unpredictable. Just one can affect you and your loved ones. Sadly, many fail to prepare for the unforeseen. Thankfully, we've been here for over 138 years, helping you plan and recover. We offer peace of mind at that critical moment. GTM Insurance. Sound, solid, and reliable. Call us today at 458-6300 or log on to gtminsurance.net.
What I like about the LTE plan is that the plans are cheaper and the coverage is wider.
What I like most about the new LTE plan is the free calls, the free calls, the free calls.
La Place Salaison, where the price is always right.
This program contains graphic content which may be disturbing to some people. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.
Lifeless body of Moses Clovis was discovered in a rocky area near the seafront. He was formally pronounced dead on the scene by a medical practitioner. His body was noticed to have multiple bruises all over. As we speak, there are 6 individuals in custody reference to this incident assisting with investigations.
The youngest homicide suspects were rounded up by police shortly after the battered body of 49-year-old Moses Clovis, a Piero Viewfort resident, was discovered in an unresponsive state along the rocky seafront at Borai Beach around midday on May 28th. Their ages ranged from 12 to 17. 3 girls and 3 boys were in police custody at the Viewfort Divisional Headquarters. Scores of parents and relatives of the implicated youth anxiously waited outside to learn the fate of their children. Moses was said to be mentally unsound. Unconfirmed reports suggested Moses allegedly accosted an unidentified female. That female was said to be associated with one of the 6 children accused of killing Moses. Moses Clovis, also known as Mole, had gotten under somebody's skin that day. A pathologist's report on Moses' injuries concluded blunt force trauma, severed his spinal cord, and crushed his rib cage. Police suspect rocks were used in the brutal attack on Moses. The gang, who had never been arrested, was subsequently released without being charged. Moses' death remained unsolved. A celebration of life devolved into an unsuccessful fight to stay alive after a party at Piat Grand Riviere on June 10th. Shem Sherry, a 27-year-old from Corinth, had buried his friend who was killed in a gun attack in January. Shem and others, including the man later accused of killing him, was in attendance at the late-night memorial. It was Saturday morning at about 1:50 a.m. when multiple gunshots were heard amid the thumping bass of dancehall beats, not uncommon during the height of a dub house party. Someone was in fact shot multiple times. It was Shem, captured via cell phone video, sprawled out on the pavement. He was rushed to Victoria Hospital, where he was pronounced dead less than an hour later. Weeks later, police arrested and charged Asu Canal resident 23-year-old Royal Casimir, who had been singled out in an ID parade. Royal was hauled before the First District Court. Family members described him as a picture-perfect altar boy. Shem was no stranger to gun violence. Relatives told the press Shem had survived a previous shooting attack that year. A bullet remained lodged in his body. CID officers believe a second shooter was involved in Shem's killing, but no further arrest had been made. Both Shem and Roll were known to police. An early morning jog up the steep end incline of Kaimaji for an unidentified resident led to an unlikely and gruesome finding. A body had been dumped in the drain at the summit of the incline. It was before 7 a.m. on June 22nd. Hours earlier, Ike Epifan, 27 years old, along with known associates, patronized this local strip club at Bois de Wange Grosery, ran by 39-year-old Lester Daniel. Ike was no stranger to the Gentleman's Club and the owner. Lester and Ike had a troubled history, which included threats of physical violence and complaints to police over Ike's alleged conduct. Management blacklisted the 27-year-old, who was also barred from entering Lester's club. Ike would later return to Lester's club for the last time on June 22nd. A night out with the boys turned rowdy inside the establishment, which prompted intervention from Lester and club security. Heated verbal exchanges turned into physical scuffles between Lester and Ike, which spilled over in the downstairs parking area. Unsuccessful attempts were made to torch and vandalize a parked vehicle owned by Lester in the melee. The fracas advanced several yards north of the club, where it is alleged Lester in a vehicle pursued Ike who was on foot. Lester would return to where the brawl started hours later. Ike did not.
Blood marks the spot where Ephraim's body was discovered.
The body stumbled upon by the early morning Kaimaji jogger was that of Ike Epiphan. He died from a fractured skull and other traumatic bodily injuries consistent with being run over by an automobile. Lester was detained that day and subsequently charged with non-capital murder.
He liked making jokes with people, always happy, strong, fun to be around.
News reporters tracked down Silka Leo on June 28th, roughly 24 hours after she learned the father of a 10-month-old son succumbed to gunshot injuries at hospital. 43-year-old Jacmel Alexander, also known as Keon Frederick, was shot twice in the head and once in the leg about 5 days prior to the interview given by his widowed girlfriend. Police believe Keon was ambushed in a suspected drive-by shooting as he walked past the White Rock Junction in Grand Riviere Grocery on the night of June 23rd. CID have made no arrest in connection with Keon's death. However, the deceased was known to law enforcement. Years prior to his death, Keon was himself the subject of a murder investigation during which he was remanded in custody. The father of 5 had other run-ins with police and was rumored to have ties with the underworld. Violence claimed the life of a mentally ill senior citizen on July 3rd. 61-year-old Julian Henry was discovered battered and barely conscious inside the meager dwelling he called home near Jalousie-Soufrière. Julian and an unidentified female were embroiled in a physical altercation some 5 days prior to his death. The scuffle drew the attention of a third party police have identified as Danny Gillan, who was detained in connection with the matter. Julian's family told Online Press he struggled with mental illness and was known to have violent episodes. Julian sustained a significant head injury in the skirmish that caused a rush of blood on his brain tissue. This matter has been submitted for inquest. This is perhaps the most troubling documentary I've had to present. The chorus of murders, the rehashing of anguish for the families, the echoes of zero leads and few arrests, and worse yet, when police officers arrest the prime suspect, but because the forensic testing takes years to get the results, these non-convicted killers are allowed to roam, and they are free to silence any witnesses. The sickening cycle of 60 homicides continues in part 2, where we allow the Major Crime Unit to punctuate the program with tidbits of crime prevention, the science of criminology. They speak of the challenges they face, and they provide the backstory to many of the homicides which were investigated in 2017. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all our new programs. Good night.
The fool has never been told. Could go on and on. The fool has never been told. Could go on and on. The fool has never been